Do I need to be initiated in order to do magic? What's the best magical society to get involved with? Is there any way that I can get initiated without getting involved with a group of people? All of these are questions that I get asked all the time. And to be honest with you, there isn't a straightforward answer to any of these questions because the word initiation means so many different things to different people. I think that for a lot of people discovering the occult for the first time, the idea of initiation is a bit of a black box. It's something that some people go through, and that it's recommended that you do so, but you're not quite sure what it is and whether you'd want to do it. And then what's going to happen once you actually are initiated? What is going to be the difference in your life? And so on and so forth, right? Lots and lots of different questions going through people's minds. And I think that the first distinction that's useful to make on the topic of initiation are the two main categories, okay? So we've got one category which is simply a social initiation. An initiation into a group, an initiation maybe into a lodge or into a society, something like that. In this kind of initiation, the group is saying, okay, we don't know you very well, but from what we can tell, you could be trustworthy. We are going to show you some very, very basic things about our group, and we're going to observe you after that, and we're going to see if you're trustworthy or not. But at the moment, we think that you probably are trustworthy, so we're going to give you a set of symbols that you won't understand to start off with, but little by little as you work through our system, those symbols will become clearer to you, maybe because of the research you're going to be doing, maybe because of the practices that you're going to be performing. Well, we will give you one or two practices to get started, and we're going to see how you get on with that. If you get on great, then we'll give you more. And if you start telling everyone around you what those practices are, then we'll know that, okay, that's probably where you're going to stop. But the initiation in this situation really means we are taking you in as one of us at the basic level. So the initiation means welcome to the group. So that's a social initiation, and clearly it's going to be a useful thing for the kind of person who likes to learn in a group. I have ADHD and I've never been able to focus on something that I've been told to focus on. I can only focus on the thing that my focus naturally lands on. And so when I'm given a course, a specific set of lessons that I have to learn, a specific set of practices that I have to perform before I can get to the thing that I might become interested in, I can't do it. And so a learning environment that involves being a part of a group doesn't suit me at all. Now, is it helpful to join a group? If you can learn in a group, I can't think of a more helpful thing to do, of course. If you can learn in an organized way, and maybe you did very well at school and you enjoyed that kind of academic rigor and the step-by-step, learn this before that, and then you'll get to the end, well, that's perfect. That's exactly what you need. And I strongly recommend looking into the various magical orders, magical groups that exist. And I'll give you a couple of ideas about those at the end of the video. But if you're like me and maybe you've had bad experiences in group situations, which is fair enough, then you might be looking into self-initiation. And that is something that has been very popular over the past few years. There's a running joke in the magical community about people attending their initiation ceremonies and suddenly feeling like they are now a magician. Becoming a magician, of course, comes through practice, not through an initiation ceremony, of course. Some of the best magical practitioners that I know of have never been through an initiation rite, and some of the worst magical practitioners that I know of have been through the initiation ceremonies of many different orders, but of course they got the values completely wrong. They're expecting that a badge is going to give them special powers. Of course it doesn't. It's just a marker of where they belong in that group's social order. That's all that is. However, some initiatory groups do in fact offer this second variety of initiation. And this second variety of initiation is the spiritual initiation. And in order to explain what a spiritual initiation might involve, I think it's worth pointing out that the word initiation in fact means a beginning, a starting, a getting started with something. And so what's most important in this second kind of initiation is really going to be an introduction to a non-material being. And it doesn't matter what kind of being that may be, an angel or a demon or anything in between or something else altogether. The point is that you are introducing yourself or being introduced to a non-material being. Now, many magical systems being polytheistic in nature, it's most likely that that being will be accompanied by other beings. And that being is going to then become a point of contact who can then introduce the initiate to other points of contact. Maybe the entities who work beneath that being, or maybe the entities who work in a sideways hierarchy. But the point is that the initiate will have broken that veil, will have actually made contact with the other side. And so this other side, so to speak, will no longer be a complete mystery. It will be something that has already been experienced once. And then anytime in the future that initiate wishes to communicate with the other side, it'll no longer be their first time, and so it'll be a much easier process, and so the initiate will then be able to establish a working relationship with that entity and with the other entities that surround it. And it's that working relationship that is the magic, of course. And you can't have a working relationship if you don't have a first introduction. Now, you might introduce yourself just on your own, and there are some entities where that's absolutely fine. And there are some entities who expect you to be introduced by someone that they already know. And it won't go well for you at all if you decide to go it alone and introduce yourself on your own. Yeah, but how did the very first person who introduced him or herself to that entity do it? Obviously, the answer to that question is going to be various depending on the entity that we're talking about, right? But it's possible that they were introduced by another entity. It's possible that they were approached as the right person by the entities themselves. After all, how would they have known that this entity existed unless they were somehow introduced? Now, it's quite different for us in the 21st century finding a name very easily on the internet of an entity who is just the right entity in your mind for you, but it's an entity who deeply despises being approached without any introduction. So in this situation, you just got some information by chance which wasn't specifically meant for you. And this is the situation in which it might be unadvisable to approach an entity who's known for requiring a formal introduction. Alright, there are actually many different magical societies whose initiation acts as both a social initiation and a magical spiritual initiation. And I think it's probably these combined initiation that cause confusion for people who are just getting started and finding out what this initiation idea in fact is. Now, these magical lodges were very popular at the end of the 19th century and beginning of the 20th century. Many of the magical orders that we still have today were created around that time. But of course, what starts off as a group of innovators, of magical thinkers, very quickly becomes an institution, and institutions are not known for evolving fast or for changing radically given new information. They tend to stick with what they know, and there's great value in that, of course. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and Aurum Solis both came out of a Masonic structure. They were Freemasons who were disenchanted with the lack of magic in Freemasonry and wanted to use all the power that was clearly embedded in the Masonic symbols and rituals and come back to that esoteric spiritual core that was clearly at the center and clearly got lost somewhere along the way. Now, until recently, when people asked me if I recommended joining the Golden Dawn, I would say that, yeah, it's great. The modern version of the Golden Dawn is fantastic, but it is a broken tradition. There is a period of time when the Golden Dawn was disbanded. And what Chick and Tabitha Cicero ingeniously put back together some few decades ago is probably very close to what they were originally practicing in the original Golden Dawn, but there's no way of knowing. And so I would very often point to the Aurum Solis as a really nice alternative that doesn't have any kind of broken lineage. It started at around the same time as Golden Dawn and has continued since then as an unbroken lineage. Many of the books that I recommend so often by Denning and Phillips are from that tradition. But recently the Aurum Solis have radically changed their approach, and they seem to be focusing more on public appeal and being a bit more generic. If you visit their website nowadays, you'll find it says Mediterranean Yoga, which I think makes sense when you know what real yoga in fact means, but I think that they're becoming less of an obviously magical order. I don't know if that makes sense. So then we get the second generation magical orders. So we're talking about the Thelemic orders, AA and OTO. We're talking about Gerald Gardner's Wicca. We're talking about the clan of Tubal-Cain, which I really recommend looking into if this is the first time you've heard of them. And these were orders that saw what the previous generation had been doing and said, well, it's great, but we need to be innovating. We need to be taking these basics and taking them forward, which of course is what we should always be doing, isn't it? So over the past few decades, we've had a surge in the amount of information that has been available outside of magical societies, and the quality of the information has been variable, of course, but the more we move forward, the more it becomes possible to cross-reference and then determine what the reliable sources of information are. And so little by little, people who aren't so attracted by groups of people have options. And actually, Chick and Tabitha Cicero have put out a fantastic self-initiation guide for the Golden Dawn system, so that people who don't necessarily enjoy a social context for their spiritual practice can nevertheless access this really powerful material and these really powerful practices. And from there, little by little, we get more and more opportunities as solo practitioners to self-initiate into a variety of different traditions. And there have been a great number of books that have been written over the past few years that have facilitated an initiation for solo practitioners. And some great examples of that have been Jack Grayle's The Hekataeon, Samuel David's Rod and Ring, Reverend Zemmi Jehuti's The Book of Flesh and Feather. And then, of course, there's the incredible work of Josephine McCarthy with her free, non-denominational course Quareia, which has revolutionized the magical world over the past few years. And then there's the incredibly helpful work of William G. Gray and Jacobus Svart, on whose work many of the Gallery of Magick books are based, and I really recommend checking them out if you enjoy the Gallery of Magick books. Which leads me to my final conclusion that there are different advantages in self-initiation and in group initiation. And I think that it's probably clear by now that the only person who can really decide which version is best for you is you. Let me know down in the comments what you think. Maybe you've got experience with specific initiatory processes. Maybe you've had experiences with certain magical groups. Did it work for you? Was it good for you? Was it ideal for you? Or do you wish, on the contrary, that you'd never had anything to do with them? Let us know. And maybe your initiation was entirely personal, entirely private. Maybe it wasn't influenced by any external factor. I personally shared in the very first Esoteric Saturday video how my initiation in fact happened. It was entirely spontaneous. No one else was involved, apart from, of course, a book, which isn't usually thought of as an initiatory text, but it was for me. It was just what I happened to need at the time, the little push that I needed, and the result just happened to me, right? It was clearly something that was waiting to happen to me. So yes, let us know down in the comments what happened to you, if anything has happened to you yet, and what your hopes and expectations are if you haven't yet been through an initiatory process. So maybe a quick update also. In the last video, there were a couple of people who commented quite pertinently that the stock footage and the memes were distracting, and I've decided that the way I'm going to address this is that I'm going to make these videos now available to members in a completely clean format with no additional material, just me talking 1 week before these fully edited videos appear for the general public. And memberships start at just $2 a month, and they help me and my family to survive. So I'm very, very grateful for anyone joining memberships, either the YouTube memberships or the Patreon memberships. And by the way, if you're wondering which one's best, the YouTube memberships is the one that gives you the little badge, but the Patreon memberships is the one where the majority of your donation gets to me. And Patreon supporters also receive an email every time an exclusive video is put out, which is something that unfortunately the YouTube memberships is not designed to do. Speaking of members, I'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you to the Level Infinity members: David Venturini, Aritz Murueta Ramos, Caitlin Kopok, Danny Barr, Eamon, Linda Hendricks, Stephen Hunter, Susanna Redelfs, and the Eldritch Keeper. Thank you so much. Your support means so much to me and to my family. And thank you so much to all the level 3 members whose names you can see scrolling up on the left over here, as well as all the level 2 and the level 1 members. Thank you so much. You are the reason this channel still exists. Really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And thank you everyone who's watched the video. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for leaving a thumbs up if you did enjoy the video. And if you'd like to see more content from me in the future, don't forget to click that subscribed button a second time and to click the little bell that comes up. And that way YouTube will know that you in fact want to see more from me. I hope today's video was useful to some of you. Please take care of yourselves and of each other. Please take care of yourselves and of each other, and I'll see you very soon with another video. Take care. Bye.